To understand the disappearance of Michael Adamo, investigators first sought to understand the man behind the myth. His life had always appeared meticulously controlled, nearly flawless in presentation. Born in 1983 in Newark, New Jersey, Michael was the eldest of 3 children. His father, Anthony Adamo, worked long shifts as a train conductor for the New Jersey Transit Authority. His mother, Elena, served as a high school English teacher. Their lives were modest, governed by strict discipline, moral responsibility, and a strong belief that hard work brought security. Neighbors remembered Michael as unusually quiet, reserved but observant. While other children gathered for games in the street, Michael often sat on the curb reading, watching rather than joining. Teachers described him as exceptionally focused, though not boastful. He seldom spoke unless called upon, but when he did, his answers were precise. In high school, he gravitated toward mathematics and economics. He joined no sports teams, seldom attended social events, but consistently ranked at the top of his academic cohort. His guidance counselor, in archived reports later obtained by investigators, had noted, "He does not seek attention, but he intends to be the best at whatever he chooses." That choice became clear when, at just 16, he began entering stock market simulations and investment competitions held by universities. In one contest hosted by a prestigious Ivy League school, Michael placed first, outperforming college economics majors using only publicly available information and a weekend of research. A pattern was forming. His intelligence was not merely academic, it was strategic. He possessed an unusual ability to analyze systems, identify patterns, and exploit inefficiencies. Quietly, patiently. In 2001, Michael was accepted into Columbia University, one of the most competitive institutions in the United States. He majored in financial economics, graduating summa cum laude. Unlike many of his peers, who drifted between internships and social circles, Michael navigated university with surgical purpose. His professors remembered him not for charisma, but for composure. One recalled, even when discussing high-stress market events, he remained absolutely calm. It was as if volatility excited him, but only internally. He never showed it. Upon graduation, Michael Adamo stepped into the financial world at a time when ambition was limitless. The early 2000s were an era of unprecedented growth. Wall Street thrived on complexity, new financial products, risk models, and the illusion that every system was under control. Michael joined a mid-sized investment firm in Lower Manhattan as a junior analyst. From the beginning, his precision stood out. While others made decisions based on instinct or pressure, Michael followed data, probabilities, and patterns. His reports were immaculate. Within 2 years, he rose through the ranks. Supervisors praised his ability to see around corners, to anticipate shifts in markets before they occurred. In 2007, as the U.S. housing bubble began to tremble, Michael quietly advised a small group of clients to reduce exposure to mortgage-backed securities. They listened, and when the financial crisis erupted a year later, his clients were among the few who escaped ruin. That single act transformed him from an analyst into a trusted financial strategist. He was promoted, featured in trade publications, and headhunted by larger institutions. By the time he turned 30, Michael was managing high-value portfolios for some of the wealthiest families in America. Success, however, came with expectations. His firm demanded long hours and total discretion. Clients included politicians, executives, and foreign investors. Every decision carried enormous weight, and every mistake could end a career. Michael seemed built for this environment, detached, methodical, always calm. Yet, even among colleagues, he remained an enigma. He socialized rarely, spoke little about his personal life, and never appeared rattled. It was said that no one ever saw him truly angry or truly happy. To outsiders, that composure made him admirable. To investigators years later, it would make him deeply suspicious. In the world of high finance, image is everything. Trust must be absolute. A smile, a firm handshake, and carefully chosen words can move millions, sometimes without a single sheet of paper changing hands. Behind polished glass towers and three-piece suits lies a world built not just on mathematics and markets, but on perception. Across trading floors and executive boardrooms, reputations are as valuable as currency. Few understood this better than Michael Adamo. To most of the financial elite, he was a symbol of discipline, intelligence, and unwavering discretion. A man whose judgment was considered so reliable that clients entrusted him with vast fortunes, secure in the belief that their assets were watched over by one of the most honest professionals in the business. But in 2018, that illusion was shattered. On a cold November morning, Michael failed to appear at his office. His assistant called repeatedly. His driver waited outside his residence as usual, engine idling. But there was no response. Concern turned to confusion. Confusion turned to alarm. By nightfall, Michael Adamo, one of the most respected investment managers on Wall Street, had vanished. No note, no message, no trace. Within days, rumors spread across financial circles. Had he been kidnapped? Had he staged his own disappearance? Or had someone from the dangerous underworld of international finance come to settle a score? It would take investigators 2 years to uncover the truth. And when they finally did, reality proved far stranger than speculation. By 2015, Michael Adamo was a managing director at Trident Capital Advisors, an exclusive private investment firm catering to ultra-high net worth clients. The company operated out of a sleek tower overlooking the Hudson River, its offices a blend of glass, marble, and whispered ambition. Michael managed accounts exceeding $500 million in combined assets. He cultivated an image of quiet luxury, tailored suits, modest cars, and a downtown apartment tastefully minimalist. He did not flaunt wealth, he projected control. Clients valued his restraint. He spoke with authority, but never arrogance, and his near-perfect memory for financial details gave the impression of total transparency. Over time, he became more than a financial advisor. He was a confidant. Several clients granted him limited power of attorney, allowing him to execute trades and transfers on their behalf. In a world built on trust, this level of authority is rare and dangerous. Investigators would later describe this as the point at which Michael Adamo crossed an invisible line from advisor to gatekeeper and finally to manipulator. Outside the office, Michael maintained the habits of a man who cherished solitude. He dined alone, traveled alone, and rarely appeared at social gatherings. His apartment, later searched by police, was immaculate. No personal photos, no decorations, only books on finance, psychology, and geopolitics. He was known to attend the same cafe each morning at precisely 7:15, where he ordered black coffee and read financial newspapers cover to cover. He tipped generously, but never made conversation. The staff described him as polite, almost invisible. Neighbors said they hardly knew him. He greeted people with a nod, sometimes a quiet smile, but never lingered. No one had ever been invited inside his home. Yet behind that simplicity lay complexity. Investigators discovered that Michael owned multiple prepaid cell phones, used different email accounts registered under aliases, and transferred funds between personal and professional accounts in ways that were, while not immediately illegal, unusually intricate. Each of these details would later form the threads of a much larger web. The first signs of irregularity surfaced in 2017. During a routine audit, Trident Capital's internal compliance team noticed several small but unexplained wire transfers moving between client sub-accounts. Each transaction was legitimate on paper, properly authorized and timed, but their pattern raised quiet questions. The transfers were subtle, often made late at night, just below the firm's reporting threshold. Over months, the amounts accumulated. When compliance officers raised the issue, Michael explained them away as temporary adjustments, short-term liquidity balancing between accounts that belonged to the same trust. His documentation appeared consistent, and his calm, confident demeanor reassured management. The matter was closed. But months later, the same pattern reappeared, slightly altered, more sophisticated. This time, transfers moved through intermediary accounts registered overseas. Investigators later realized, the early structure of a shadow network designed to conceal large-scale embezzlement. What investigators eventually uncovered after his disappearance was astonishing in its precision. Over 3 years, Michael Adamo built a system of offshore shell companies scattered across multiple jurisdictions, including the Cayman Islands, Cyprus, Panama, and the Isle of Man. Each entity was layered under others, masking true ownership behind corporate directors and trustees. Using his clients' legitimate investments as cover, Michael siphoned small percentages, sometimes fractions of a percent, into these entities. The transactions were executed through legal channels, disguised as management fees or third-party payments for research services. No single transaction drew attention, but taken together, they amounted to nearly $45 million. The money was consolidated into a private fund registered under a false name, Blue Meadow Holdings Limited, and then redistributed into accounts controlled by Michael under multiple aliases. Every document, every signature, appeared authentic. What made it particularly remarkable was how carefully he planned the illusion. The shell companies had websites, phone numbers, even office addresses, many real, leased temporarily under short-term contracts. They could withstand scrutiny, at least superficially. Financial crimes of this complexity are rarely impulsive. They are built over years, brick by brick, lie by lie. And by 2018, Michael's system was almost perfect. In the weeks leading up to his disappearance, subtle shifts appeared in Michael's routine. He began arriving at work earlier and leaving later, often taking private calls behind closed doors. Colleagues assumed it was related to client negotiations. But surveillance logs later showed multiple calls to unregistered international numbers. Around the same time, he liquidated several personal assets, including a modest art collection and a rare car, converting them into cash. He transferred this money into a separate account under the name M.A. Consulting, a firm that, as investigators later confirmed, did not exist. On the evening of November 9th, 2018, Michael was last seen leaving his office at 9:32 p.m. Building cameras captured him exiting the elevator, briefcase in hand, face expressionless. He paused briefly at the lobby, looked at his phone, then stepped outside. He never returned home. The next morning, his driver waited outside his apartment as usual. By 8:45 a.m., when Michael had not appeared, the driver contacted the office. Calls went unanswered. At 11 a.m., a colleague visited his apartment. The door was unlocked. Inside, police later noted, everything was in perfect order, except for his phone, laptop, and passport, which were missing. His bed was neatly made, his wardrobe untouched. There were no signs of struggle, no fingerprints out of place, no trace of forced entry. It was as if he had simply walked out of his life. The disappearance of Michael Adamo drew immediate attention. Within 48 hours, the case was transferred to the Missing Persons Bureau of the NYPD, who, aware of his professional stature, quietly coordinated with the Financial Crimes Division. His firm, Trident Capital, cooperated fully, at least on paper. For the first several weeks, the investigation proceeded cautiously. Detectives interviewed colleagues, neighbors, and family members. They learned that Michael had no known enemies, no history of depression, no debts, and no indications of foul play. His bank accounts were active but unaltered since the night he vanished. With no ransom demands or communication, theories diverged. Some speculated that he had suffered a mental breakdown and fled. Others believed he was the victim of corporate retaliation. One theory even suggested abduction by organized crime, given the sums of money he managed. But it was a small detail, almost overlooked, that first hinted at something deeper. When investigators examined Michael's email history, they discovered a set of encrypted messages sent from his company laptop to a domain registered overseas. The messages, though indecipherable, had been sent regularly for nearly a year. To most, they meant nothing. To experienced financial investigators, they suggested a hidden system of communication, the kind often used to coordinate international fund transfers. The question was no longer, where is Michael Adamo? But what had he been hiding? News of the missing banker soon leaked to the press. Financial tabloids were quick to sensationalize it. Wall Street prodigy disappears without a trace. Millionaire advisor leaves mystery behind. Talk shows speculated endlessly. Was it a kidnapping, a suicide, or an elaborate attempt to escape scrutiny? For a man who had spent his life avoiding attention, Michael Adamo suddenly became a household name. Former clients began contacting authorities concerned about the security of their investments. Trident Capital, under pressure to maintain confidence, issued a public statement describing Adamo as a valued member of staff and a man of the highest integrity. Behind closed doors, however, they quietly assembled their own forensic team. That internal review would soon reveal that the truth was far more damaging than anyone had imagined. As investigators traced Michael's financial activities, patterns emerged that were almost mathematical in their precision. Dozens of transfers, each seemingly benign, connected across continents like threads in a vast web. They began with small sums, 5,000 here, 10,000 there, moving between legitimate client accounts. Then, routed through offshore intermediaries, the amounts multiplied. The breakthrough came when analysts discovered recurring account numbers embedded within multiple transactions. The same numerical sequences appeared under different entity names, an improbable coincidence. When traced, they led to a holding company registered in the Cayman Islands, Blue Meadow Holdings Ltd. On paper, Blue Meadow appeared legitimate, a financial research consultancy founded in 2015, registered to a shared office suite. But further investigation showed that its directors were all proxies, names lifted from unrelated small businesses in distant countries. In reality, Blue Meadow was a shell, one of several used to conceal tens of millions of dollars stolen from clients. What startled investigators most was not the theft itself, but the discipline behind it. Every transaction followed a logic designed to avoid detection. Even forensic accountants admitted that it could have gone unnoticed indefinitely if not for his disappearance. In mid-2019, nearly 8 months after the disappearance, a new lead emerged. A joint task force between Interpol and U.S. authorities uncovered evidence that one of Michael's aliases, David Kellen, had been used to rent an apartment in Bucharest, Romania. Surveillance footage from the building showed a man matching his description entering the premises 3 weeks after he was reported missing. He wore a hat, sunglasses, and a heavy coat, but facial recognition technology confirmed a 92% match. The footage reignited the case. Investigators discovered that David Kellen had opened multiple accounts across Eastern Europe using counterfeit identification documents of remarkable quality. He had also purchased a small cabin in the Carpathian Mountains under a third alias, Marcelo Diaz. Cross-border cooperation intensified. Local police, working with U.S. agents, began monitoring activity near the cabin. Months passed. The property remained quiet, uninhabited, until a routine patrol in February 2020 noticed fresh tire tracks in the snow. On February 14, 2020, Romanian authorities, acting on a joint warrant, entered the secluded cabin. Inside, they found a man sitting at a wooden desk, calmly typing on a laptop. He did not resist arrest. When asked his name, he simply replied, "You already know." Fingerprint analysis confirmed what many suspected. The man was indeed Michael Adamo. The cabin search yielded multiple forged passports, banking hardware tokens, encrypted drives, and cash, approximately $4.8 million in mixed currencies. There were also handwritten notes detailing complex fund movements and a partial list of offshore entities, some previously unknown to investigators. The evidence suggested that Michael had been preparing to relocate again, likely to a non-extradition country. His capture, by all accounts, came just days before he could vanish completely. During interrogation, Michael remained composed. He answered basic procedural questions, but refused to comment on the funds. His legal representation, hired immediately after his arrest, argued that the money was lawfully earned through private consulting. However, the evidence was overwhelming. Tracing the funds back to stolen client accounts left little room for defense. Extradited to the United States later that year, Michael faced charges of wire fraud, embezzlement, and identity falsification. His trial, held in 2021, was a media spectacle. Former clients testified about the betrayal they felt. Financial experts detailed the scale of his deception. Prosecutors painted him as a master manipulator, a man who had engineered not only a financial crime, but a full erasure of identity. Michael himself never testified. He sat quietly through the proceedings, expression unreadable. In December 2021, he was sentenced to 18 years in federal prison and ordered to repay $38 million, funds that, to this day, have not been fully recovered. The case of Michael Adamo continues to fascinate criminologists and economists alike. How did a man so intelligent, so disciplined, choose to betray everything he built? Was it greed, a need for control, or something more existential, a desire to test the boundaries of power and perception? Psychologists who reviewed the case described Adamo as a textbook example of compartmentalization, a man capable of dividing his identity into perfect halves, one lawful, one criminal, each believing itself superior to the other. Even within prison, reports suggest that he remains detached, polite, reserved, and eerily calm. He has refused all interviews, declining offers from publishers and filmmakers. His silence has only deepened the mystery. Meanwhile, forensic accountants continue to uncover fragments of his network. In 2023, investigators traced an additional $6 million hidden through cryptocurrency wallets linked to shell companies in Asia, evidence that Michael's web may have extended further than anyone imagined. Michael Adamo's story serves as a chilling reminder that corruption is not always loud or violent. Sometimes it is quiet, disciplined, and executed by those least expected. His disappearance was not an act of panic, but precision. Every step was measured. Every deception planned years in advance. Yet, like all systems built on lies, it eventually collapsed under its own complexity. Today, his name remains a cautionary whisper across financial institutions, a lesson in vigilance, ethics, and the fragility of reputation. And somewhere, deep in the archives of financial crime, the files of the banker who vanished stand as both a warning and a paradox, proof that even the most controlled minds can lose control, and that in the pursuit of perfection, some men choose disappearance over discovery.